All right, the next one, we're going to start with you, Stevie P. So can you expound why there's no such thing as mistakes before I ask you what were one of your biggest mistakes and what you learned from it?
Okay, well, everything is a learning experience. So that's the view that I take, and that's the view that a lot of people take that are on that road of self-improvement. And if you really think about it, like the experiences that made you a better person, they all at least seem to be bad at the time. All of those profound experiences that changed you for the better. So yeah, that's the first point I have, and then also that life is about overcoming obstacles. It's like if you think of life as like a video game, referring to the Big Bang hologram again. If you think of life as a video game, it's defined and it's only fun if you're overcoming challenges. Like when you play Super Mario Brothers, if all you had to do was walk to the right the whole time without jumping over any obstacles. No, it would be so fucking boring. Yeah, it would be so boring. So life just as a smooth ride is not living. And Joe Rogan said on one of his podcasts that like the worst thing that can happen to you is to win the lottery at age 21, because you won't have to overcome anything. There will be no challenges. So that's what I have to say about that.
So what was one of your biggest mistakes? That's the point.
One of my biggest mistakes. It's
or quote unquote learning experiences.
Yeah, I'll call it a learning experience. When I ended up in the hospital from drinking too many shots.
You idiot.
Yeah, I was
looking for another one. You hit on that one a few times.
But
nothing deeper.
That really paradigm shifted me.
Stop being a follower and a pussy.
Yeah, because I did it just through peer pressure and things like that, and like having the mentality to please others and trying to look cool and didn't look cool at all. So that really forced me to reevaluate everything and to truly love myself and to put something greater in the forefront of my mind instead of just being at the whim of everyone else.
So was there something greater pretty much right away, or is that something that just developed over time, or what would you say?
Like,
what is that?
I did, like, afterwards I did a lot of, like, deep thinking and, like, soul searching. And it just drove me to basically improve myself in general. So I started reading more, started working out, started eating better, and then, like, the path just started shaping up for me.
And how long did you say that was?
7 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. John Boy?
Well, biggest mistake. I don't know what I'd consider my biggest
learning experience.
Learning. Yeah. Well, I guess like the biggest learning experience would be joining the military for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah, really taught me a lot about who I was as a person, and how easily it is to succumb to peer pressure and be what others want you to be, or to be what you're surrounded by is a better way of saying it. You know, people in the military are kind of a different breed.
Yeah.
You know, people who are in, you know, they joke a different way, they act a different, like everything they see is a little different, and at the end of the day, you know, I still cherish the friends I made in the military. You know, they're like family. Won't be closer to anybody really. But would I have hung out with them outside the military? Fuck no. We are just complete polar opposites, and you know, they're one thing and I was way other. And I definitely
got a few downloading this podcast.
Good. I tell them that all the time. Like, all my friends I've told, like, if I met you in high school, we would not have been friends. Like, simple as that. And it's just, yeah, that was the biggest thing was, you know, living a couple of years not really being who I was as a person. And when I did let little, like, blurps of it out, boy, why are you so weird? Why don't you do this and that? It's like, you know,
That's
I have to get that shit from my mom though. She's like, why aren't you a normal person?
because you question things.
Yeah, because I've always questioned, and I was like, every time I come across something interesting, like I presented to her, she doesn't have the best health, whatever, and I presented to her like, here, you know, like maybe something this will click, and maybe you might get interested, and she's like, you know, you're really hard to keep up with all your tree hugging hippie hocus pocus. Or something like that. It just meant like, really, am I that bad for like seeing the world in a different way?
Because the mainstream healthcare system's really working for people.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
And being normal is really working out for people.
What is wrong anyways?
Seriously.
Yeah.
Boy, that's one of the best sarcastic statements I've heard in a while.
I think like
Taking over for you, Mike.
the biggest thing though is all the opportunities I said no to based off fear that add up. You know, where could I possibly be now if I had said yes and just put myself out there? And each time you say no, it adds up, and it may be something little, but over the course of a lifetime, there's a lot you've missed out on just from saying no here and there. That's what I got.
All right. For me, my greatest, and by the way, I like that you sort of, and I think you did this accidentally, but you mixed the words, which was like learning experience, and I was like, oh, that's a good new word. But yeah, sort of my biggest learning mystery is when I failed out of college, and to me that was just, I mean, I really just didn't give a flying fuck about anything, to be perfectly frank. I was like, I'll just do whatever the hell I feel like and have a good time and get fucked up and waste all my time.
Sounds about right.
And I mean, unfortunately, that was a tough way to, you know, fail, but it was also probably the best thing that I think happened to me, because it really has shaped me into who I am today. And you know, it made me go into a deep spiral where I hit, you know, what I would consider my rock bottom. And then from there, it was a very helpful experience to learn, okay, what is it that I find important? What am I going to prioritize? How am I going to bounce back from things? All sorts of very powerful, interesting outcomes from that. So, you know, at the time, it felt like the worst thing in the world, and I felt like I disappointed everyone, especially myself. But when I came out of it, I felt much, much stronger and, you know, more proud of myself and more able to overcome anything that comes my way, sort of thing. So,
If I would have known you, I'd have been very disappointed, Mike.
yeah, see?
Did your parents pay for college initially? Or?
Initially. Yeah, not so much, which is fine. I mean, I was super, super lucky in that they were willing to, you know, and able to do that. And I squandered that like a big jackass. And that was another thing that I learned, is that money doesn't just fall out of the sky, you know, you got to work for it.
Depends on who you are.
Right.
But. All right. I've got a long list, but one that always comes to mind is when I was younger, I did a lot of things that society tells you are the right things. So, got married very young, stayed married. I gave my word to get married while I was, you know, drinking a lot of wine and horny as fuck. Then stayed in that said marriage because everybody says, you know, it's best for the children, and there's no love. And I'm not advocating that, you know, people run out of all relationships or anything, but you know the answer to these questions, I find, typically deep down. And what I would say the lesson was I early on thought I was doing the honorable things. So getting married because of an action that people say you should do, but really that's the cowardly thing. Yeah. So when you're listening to society and not yourself and the peer pressure, it's cowardly, and it's you're not authentic self. You're not only screwing yourself. The reason why it's cowardly is because you're screwing the other person. Mm-hmm. If you had balls, you wouldn't waste their time for 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, like so many relationships that people do. They're miserable, lonely, insecure, what have you, but they're wasting each other's time, not moving on. They could be on another challenge, or getting to know themselves better, what have you.
Brings up an interesting point, if I may. Brings up an interesting point, which is that I can't think of another scenario where living in the present is actually maybe not the best route. Where you're like, fuck it, we'll get married. But other than that, I mean, I can't think of another scenario where that actually is a bad thing. Yeah.
I have a buddy you met, did a few of those, ended up in Vegas, passed out in penthouse suites, had to get a few annulled. That's why he doesn't drink anymore. Probably spent $10 million along with it, but.